That's Miggy. This is Candace. I'm Gerard, and today on Canceled Weekly, we're talking Mike Tyson, Junkie Rats, A Date with Destiny. But first, we've got Jordan Peterson.
Got anything to say about thou shalt not kill?
It'll be brief. It's an incorrect translation, but I don't blame the King James people. I do blame any modern translator who translates it as do not kill. It's do not murder. Hebrew has two words for homicide or for killing, just as English does. Kill and murder. In Hebrew, harag and ratzach. This is ratzach. It's clear it's do not murder. Murder is illegal killing. There is legal killing. You can kill an animal to eat it. You can kill a human in self-defense. So if it said do not kill, we would have to be pacifists and vegetarians.
Mickey, I know that you are a disciple of an Israelite, David Adiv, one of the best thinkers of the modern era, the brain himself, and he has very, very interesting thoughts on this, doesn't he?
Well, at first, actually, I mean, besides for David, I was thinking about that because there was always that delineation when they'd be like soldiers going to war. Are they breaking the Bible or the Ten Commandments? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of clears that up there where it's like, you know what I mean? It explains that, you know, if that his translation is correct. I'm not sure what you're referring to with David, though.
David talked...
Oh, I do know what you're talking about now. So you said if someone wakes up to kill you, you must rise to kill them first. Mm-hmm. It's your responsibility to fulfill your potential. So if you take like a seed, if they're going to squash that seed, you couldn't see that apple seed could grow into a whole apple tree. You might see it just as this little ass seed right now, but then you water it, gives it time, it can fulfill its potential and grow into something great. And that's the same thing for you. If someone looks to squash your potential, kill you, whatever, it's your job to rise and stop them from doing so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just found out you know Hebrew. Is that a correct translation?
No, I do not know Hebrew. My mom actually does, which I found out recently too. She just has this whole other life that I had no idea about.
Wow.
But what's interesting, what you just shared. So my grandma, her lineage, she has a whole bunch of samurai in her family, and we have the swords from way back in these ancient wars, which is really badass. And she hates ninjas and that philosophy, and they're kind of opponents ideologically. So she would kind of tell, from a young age, I'm like, why is my grandma at 5 telling me about ninjas and samurais? But she was, and she's like, the big difference is that a samurai will go into the room and kick the pillow before they before they kill, and then a ninja will sneak in and kill the person in their sleep. And it comes back to ethics and engagement, rules of engagement. So you can't just kill someone while they're sleeping. You have to give them a chance to come at you. And then that's more ethical.
A samurai's more honorable.
Exactly.
While a ninja, they're known like the ninjutsu, that stealth. They sneak around. They're very stealthy. They look they're almost like assassins. Mm-hmm. While a samurai's goes kind of back to the Miyamoto Musashi, the great swordsman, where we're gonna have a meeting. We're gonna be out, even though he was kind of, I don't want to say treacherous, but he was kind of tricky, very tricky himself.
Showing up late, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. He would hide in a tree all day, wait for the guy to right as he's about to leave, he's like, I'm here now. You know what I mean? But yeah, he'd play tricks kind of. But yeah, that makes sense. I didn't know that, but that makes sense to the samurai culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really shows the power of words, right? Words really do have meaning. And sometimes people think semantics is just, a lowbrow, argument tactic. But there's a difference between murder and self-defense. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the big things we see happening all the time in politics and our culture today is this person is not an illegal alien. They're an undocumented citizen. One of them is a clerical issue. The other one is a felony, right? Somebody's not a trespasser. They're an unregistered dinner guest, Right. This isn't an assault. This is an unrequested sparring partner. These are different, these are the same concepts, but they're very, very different meanings. And it makes me wonder, over the course of thousands of years, and if the Bible was first spoken in Aramaic and then translated from Aramaic to Greek and then from Greek to Latin and then from Latin to French and then from French to English, what else have we based our entire society on that may be a semantic error? You know, the very famous one is, you know, the idea that Mary Magdalene is Jesus's wife, not Jesus's whore.
Friend.
You know, whore. She was a whore, but then
She was a
apparently,
whore, but she wasn't Jesus's whore.
well, apparently the word, the Greek word, specifically the Greek word for wife and whore, was like very close back in the day. It was like one character off. So, you know, and then whether or not it was intentionally, you know, in the Council of Nicaea, whether it was intentionally misconstrued or whatever, but it does make you wonder, something like that, very different between thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not murder. Very, very different meanings. Very, very different,
Right.
you know, definitions. I wonder what else we've gotten
It's funny.
wrong.
Yeah, I always interpreted it as kill as murder, though. You know what I mean? I never looked at it as like you shouldn't kill any animal. You shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like obviously, you know, you need to eat. You know what I mean? Like there's I feel like war. There's time for killing.
Inherently, you always thought that? Because that was actually
yeah.
conversations I had with my dad when I was young, and I was like not really buying the religion where I was being disobedient, you know, before the Irish Catholic hand of God said, shut up and kneel.
Yeah,
you know?
because I said so.
Yeah. So the Knights Templar, right? Because, you know, I'm a big history guy. My dad's a big history guy, and I'm a young guy, and I'm like, so the Knights Templar, are they in heaven? They killed people. And shut up, kneel. You know, like,
Yeah.
I
I feel like I asked my dad when I was young, like about that. You know what I mean? Like and it, you know, just it made sense. Like without like, I don't know. I think it is what it is. It's murder. You know what I mean?
I think it's interesting that you differentiate murder from war, right? Like,
Right.
I still consider
That's an agreement.
But
on
a
both
drone
sides.
strike, is that agreed upon, especially when it's getting civilians?
that's what I'm getting.
No.
That's what I'm getting towards.
But then
No.
we see that as
I'm
a casualty. So there was this woman. What's her name? It's escaping me. But comedian. He's Dave Smith.
Okay.
He was just doing this episode, and he spoke about this woman. They brought up the video, and she's doing this interview, and they're like, "Well, it's estimated that we have killed 500,000 children in this." And she sat there for a second and goes, "Well," and the interviewer said, "Is it worth it?" And she goes, "Well, we've really thought about it, and it was a difficult decision, but yes, we think it's worth it." And you're like, whoa, this lady just admitted to that, knowing she was being recorded. And how can you say that that's part of war? And how can you say that that's worth it? Because if it was your children, our children of, you know, the United States, I think we would have a very different opinion of that.
Yeah, collateral damage. You know, the acceptable amount of collateral damage is, you're talking about a war crime, and I'm not even talking about that, which to me is a very obvious one.
Like,
I'm talking about you're a soldier, you enlist, and you get sent to Afghanistan, and you know you're out there on somebody else's land, you know, fighting.
That's what I don't consider murder. And when I interpret, especially like from like the Bible, for whatever reason, I think more of like ancient warfare, where it's people signing up and we're agreeing to do battle. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Did Afghanistan agree to that battle?
That's the thing. I'm not talking about drone strikes. I'm not talking about modern warfare. I think that's murder. Are you asking me if Afghanistan did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't
I'm saying,
speak
so-
for that. I don't speak for Afghanistan. I don't know.
To this, do you like the soldier? The soldier gets an order. He fulfills his order. Do you hold the
don't
soldier responsible
don't
or
our
no?
rules of engagement, we have to wait for them to point a weapon at you and start to shoot it?
Yeah, once we're
So
occupying.
then at that point, then
they get what they signed up for.
Who? The person pointing the gun? Yeah. If they
The
point a gun at
occupied
you.
peoples. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shitty situation.
Yeah. I don't give people the same benefit of the doubt other people do. I hate the good German. I hate the I was just following orders thing. I hate the cop who says I was just following orders. I hate the soldier who says I was just following orders. You're complicit. That's just my personal opinion. People can differentiate that however they want, but you know, the idea that you pulled the trigger and killed somebody, but it wasn't really your fault because, you know, somebody else gave the order. I'm sorry, buddy. I don't feel that way. But, you know, it's neither here nor there. I feel like, you know, but also like, you know, we haven't really had a noble conflict in 70 something years, and we've been at conflict for all of them. So, yeah, but again, this is a really interesting thing, right? Where I keep going back to what Sammy Gravano said, when he's like, if I killed 16 people in Vietnam, they'd have made me a general, but I killed 16 people in America, and I'm a
Right,
monster.
but I also get what he's saying, because both people in like that life, the mafia, the mob, whatever, like they're signing up for a particular set of life and a set of rules. You know what I mean? He's not going and like murdering like innocent children and people.
Sure.
And the same way, if I sign I fight. I sign a paper. If I kill that guy in a cage, I don't think I go to hell. He agreed to come do combat with me. I agree to do combat with him. If I kill him, I don't go to hell.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Let me get real philosophical with both of you real quick. Ukrainians are getting slaughtered by Russians right now, whether anybody wants to admit it's happening or not. All right. They want to end this thing. They want a détente. They want a ceasefire. Our American politicians, won't let them do it. We keep giving them billions of dollars and sending an entire generation of Ukrainian men out to be cannon fodder. Now, it's our elected officials and it's our tax dollars that are financing that. Are we complicit in that slaughter?
Yeah.
I'd say yes too.
Yeah.
Like you and I, or like we, the collective United States?
Well, I think we, the collective United States, it goes without saying. You and I as individual
Is there
citizens.
something before that you think you're not seeing eye to eye with me?
No, not at all.
It seemed like there was like you were maybe giving like a counter, and I was just trying to figure it out.
No, it's not a counter. I'm trying to kind of like
before with the war stuff and the soldier.
Yeah, I'm trying to like get that, like I'm trying to get a very clearly defined, if we're gonna kind of separate the difference between a noble kill versus an ignoble
So if
murder.
All right, so I'll try and complicate it too then. Let's say we're occupying Afghanistan or something, and you blow up. You're a soldier, and you blow up like a part of a town because there's a target in there and there's collateral damage and those people die. I don't put it on the soldier. I put it on the person who put the soldier there.
Why not both?
Maybe like a 10% on the soldier.
little column A, little column B.
You know what I mean? I mean, yeah. If I'm trying to, like I said, I'm trying to complicate it, and
There's no easy answer to these things.
I don't really have. It's not like I came in here with thoughts on this, so to speak. You know what I mean? But I just look at it as if in a war and something that we're lining up our troops. You got your troops over here, on the other side. Like, there's no, that's not murder. We know what we signed up for here. We're here to get rid of the enemy. The enemy's here to kill us.
Yeah, and now this is all through like the lens of like the Judeo-Christian Western, rationale as well. Perhaps it's just Darwinist. Maybe the idea here is like the universe is cold, dark, damp, and it's all a race for resources.
I take back my comment about you being an optimist. I gave it to you and I took it away.
I told you right from the jump you were wrong as fuck.
I was fooled.
Maybe this is just the way it's supposed to be. Maybe it's whichever monkey accumulates the most bananas for any reason is the winner.
No. Because fairness is wired into us. So they've done these studies with apes, and one group would get slices of cucumbers, and then they'd give some to the other one. So like, okay, this is cool, and we're eating these snacks. Then they would up the ante, and they'd give cucumbers to the one group, and then they'd start giving grapes to the other one. And like the other monkeys would look over and be like, what the fuck is this? I want some of that, and this isn't fair. And they would see the just inherent unfairness of the situation, and then they would not be okay with it. It is wired into us. We want there to be good and light and love.
Who was upset? The one who wasn't getting the grapes?
Yeah.
What did they do about it?
The ones who were getting the grapes, what were they doing?
Eating the grapes, having a great time. Life's
so
good.
Is
You're
fairness
winning.
really? Is fairness really?
It's only fair when the bad shit's happening to you. That's when you want some fairness. But when you're balls deep in grapes, you're like,
well, they're not necessarily like these very enlightened beings that are just going to like share, right? Like that we've evolved to that on some level.
Have we?
I think
some of us.
I don't know if I agree. I think the evolution of sharing comes from that is also a defense mechanism, or it's a transactional thing to get what you want.
No, because if you think about it, we never had anything to store. We roamed, and we weren't like setting up camps and just like farming was, and agriculture came way later. So if you had all of these resources like fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, you had to share, otherwise it would spoil. So there was no hoarding, there was no mine. This is the tribe. And the thing is, if I had a really good day hunting and I had like this giant elk, I can't finish it. Maybe I don't have the means to dry it, so I'm going to share it with my tribe. And then when you go and kill like something awesome and I'm not having a good day, then you share with me. So to survive, we had to share. It wasn't the sense of hoarding until we started to put roots down and say, well, okay, this is mine. Don't cross that line.
My house, my money, my food, and my refrigerator.
Right. And then we started to have a different relationship to
I think maybe
acquiring
yes.
things.
I think maybe yes, and I think there may be something to the big guy comes from a different tribe and either takes all your stuff or you offer it to him first, and you say, well, instead of me offering this guy for nothing, maybe I can reason with him, and this is where trade comes in. It's like, all right, I'll give you some of this elk there, big guy. Don't kill me and in the middle of the night and take all my shit. But how about, you give me some of that water you got there?
Well, what about like Simon Sinek, leaders eat last, and the idea of taking care of everyone else, especially the vulnerable. And if you look at wolves and how they operate, right, it's the weak and the old kind of lead, and then the alpha is making sure that everyone's okay, and he makes sure everyone is getting fed.
I still think that's a trade. I think that's a transaction. They're trading resources for obedience, loyalty. They're trading. They're essentially providing for fealty. If it was an older person doing that to a younger person, we'd call that grooming. I think that's it's a very. I believe eaters eat last, but also the leader wants something out of his followers. And that's kind of why you eat last, right?
But you can look at it with like this ominous perspective of like you're trying to take and you want someone obedient, where you can look at it as you're trying to like create tribe and relationship and trust and bonding, right? It doesn't have to be this Machiavellian stance. It can be more, what's the word? Like my vocabulary is not here today.
No,
but it can just be more like a pure transaction.
I get what you're saying. And there's, from a man's perspective, it's very different when you're younger and you're hyper competitive and you haven't achieved, to when you're older and you have achieved, and then you become a little more magnanimous, more patient. And I think our next clip expands upon what we're already talking about. Oddly enough, we've read Kierkegaard, Jung, Freud, Nietzsche, some of the greatest philosophers of all time. I've never heard anybody that so concisely expresses the human condition as our next clip, the philosopher Mike Tyson.
I know the art of fight, I know the art of war. That's all I ever studied. That's why I'm so feared. That's why they feared me when I was in the ring, because I was an annihilator. That's all I was born for. Now those days are gone. It's empty. I'm nothing. I'm working on being the art of humbleness. Can you be with me? That's the reason why I'm crying, because I'm not that person no more. And I miss them. Because sometimes I feel like a bitch. Because I don't want that person to come out, because if he comes out, hell is coming with him. And it's not funny at all. It must sound cool, like I'm a tough guy. It's just, I hate that I'm scared of him.
I feel like you should start with that.
With Mike Tyson. So I think Mike Tyson's kind of like a low-key philosopher of our time. He's a really smart guy. He takes some chances. Very ambitious with them 10-point words. You know what I mean? Like he goes for it. He's obviously a very, very smart guy. I know personally, and in talking with fighters, like when you are living that life and you're, getting in the cage and you're training for that every day, or the ring in Tyson's case, and you win that, you go into battle, you come out victorious and stuff. There's nothing you could smoke, snort, shoot, swallow to give you that rush, that adrenaline, that accomplishment, the relief, the you know what I mean? Like all that. And I know a lot of fighters, when they no longer have that, they lose their sense of purpose. You can speak to being an athlete, former athlete, and not having that same thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where you get that juice from. And a lot of guys turn to either drugs or alcohol and different things when you go through those transitionary periods in your life. So I think that he's talking about the art of humbleness and just trying, you know what I mean? Like, cause he knows he goes back and tries to get back into that killer mind that could lead to, you know, not having healthy outlets for it. Like I know, like me personally, like I have like addiction and stuff in my family. I think I have an addictive personality. My training and working out is like part of like I channel it into functional healthy ways. And then one day when my career and I don't have all this stuff, I'm gonna have to make sure I'm still channeling it into other healthy ways. So I think him talking about the art of humbleness is him channeling that energy into something healthy and good for not just like himself but the people around him. What are your guys' thoughts on that? That's what I get out of that clip.
Well, there's two things that really stick out to me. The first one is, and this kind of goes to your previous point about how we maybe evolved apes, because then you wouldn't see so many people who have achieved things violently or nefariously have so much remorse for it later on. Remorse seems to be the tell that it isn't just about, you know, which ape accumulates the most bananas. You know, so the fact that we have that kind of that feeling, you know, of regret, that tinge of, you know, the fruits are ill-gotten, maybe that does speak towards what you were saying before. And I can say that the thing that really is difficult when you leave the competitive space is that you know where you are at all times. You know, in our last episode, we talked about the social hierarchy with Rollo Tomasi. In sports, you don't need to. There's no wondering. You know where you are in the batting order. You know where your stats are in the league. You know which league you're in. You're keenly aware of your progress, whether you're doing well, whether you're not doing well. You get instant feedback, right? You win or you lose. Instant feedback. In life, it's not like that. And then when you have that instant feedback and then you're trying to build a business or you're trying to date and then you've gone from that, I know where I stand at all times, to, man, I'm not getting the respect I deserve, is how it manifests itself, because nobody's like, but it's really you're internalizing your own insecurities, I feel like. You know, like I can quantify I'm the man. I'm fourth in the league in RBIs to, you know, I'm just like, you know, I'm just working, man. Like I don't have anything to judge it on.
Where did the ill-gotten fruits relate to what Tyson was saying?
I think Tyson, if you think about the way that he went about the second half of his career, right? But this is also me just projecting because I've listened to a lot of what else Tyson has had to say. You know, he did a lot of things for money that he probably regrets in the second half, and he had to do that because when he left Cuss, you know, and got with Cuss died, and he got with Don King, he stopped training. You know, he kind of was the architect of his own destruction. And then that led him down a decade of jail, bankruptcy, drug addiction. He's lost a daughter, you know, which some you know, he said is karma for some of his things. You know, so the idea of you know, that hyper competitor made him who he is. But you know, the hyper competitor, we see it with John Jones, we see it with a lot of guys. I see it with a lot of guys I played with. The hyper competitor, when you don't have anybody to compete against anymore, it finds somebody to compete against. You compete against your own best interests.
Yeah, I think like as to your second point, you're talking about in sports, and I think in combat sports specifically, it forces you to confront truth, right? Like you're forced to confront reality all the time, because if you're lying to yourself, you're gonna get fucked up, right? But even like, and I say combat sports specifically because like in basketball, you can see a dude like dunk and then be like, "What's up, man?" You know what I mean? Flex on the dude. All right, you put a ball through a hole. Someone's trying to put a hole in your head with their fist. You know what I mean? Like it's. I think it's even. You know, fourth in the batting order, fourth in like RBIs or whatever. There's no numbers. There's wins or losses. You know what I mean? Like you understand?
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, there's different. You want to fight in the UFC. You don't want to fight in a regional. You know what I'm saying? You want to climb the ladder. There's 100% a hierarchy in your sport for sure. You got pound for pound rankings. You got money involved. You got, if anything, it's way worse in your sport.
What do you mean way worse?
The stakes are higher every time you go out there. You don't have 150
that's what I'm
games this
saying.
year. Yeah, the stakes are way, way higher. But it's not like it's like an even playing field where you win, you lose. I mean, when you win everything. When you lose everything.
Right. Yeah, high highs and low lows.
Big time. Now this seems to be more of a male thing than a female thing. I've never met
Well,
really.
I'm also a former athlete. So
yes.
it's just a different kind of extreme sport. No, I
Very
think,
extreme. I mean, you like to make the similarities.
Yes. Yeah.
We're both either taking or doing some pounding.
Yep, absolutely. Both work well in the guard.
Right.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Legs are open sometimes.
Yeah, you don't.
Different positions. You got to be.
a lot of exchange of bodily fluids.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
oh,
right.
yeah.
Strong on your back.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good. Yeah,
Be fluent in
basically the
different
exact
positions.
same thing. Yeah. Whereas
We
a
basically
little
basically
flexible.
have the same career.
basically the same
yes,
career.
both undefeated.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is.
Both have proven to take a pounding and keep on ticking.
better
Yeah.
for it. You know?
Better for it.
Amen.
Better for it.
Hey, amen.
Absolutely.
No, I was gonna say it just sounds like he's just trying to get the point home of mastering your mind, right? And not letting your mind be chaotic and take you into dark places, and then also not identifying with your role or function or career. And I think it's really hard when you are constantly being rewarded by external measures, whether it's like your weight, your title, where you're finishing, how many followers you have, how many downloads you have, whatever it is. We're constantly having the ego measure because that's how we know we exist. We're like, okay, well, I know I'm here because I'm measuring up against this other thing. So if you can not identify with all of the external and just know that you exist and you're amazing just for being here, right? Like you came into this place as a human, and that's so rare and beautiful, and you don't need to do all the other bullshit to prove that you're worthy of love or you're worthy of anything. So I think it's not getting caught up in that trap and that rat race and then just saying I am, not I am Mike Tyson, I am undefeated, I am the GOAT, whatever. It's just I am.
I feel I get what you're saying. I feel like women tend to do that as well, but their arena is the household or the man, right? And then their kind of drug is
Well, it's how
we
pretty
are,
you
right?
are too. Like, am I the prettiest girl in the room? Am I the skinniest, the most fit, the most desired? That's so important for
What
women.
else? No, I'm just-
and you're judging that yourself.
We're our own worst critics with everything, right? So, and I think that's where a lot of insecurities come from. So again, that's just all ego. So it's my ego trying to measure where I am in space and time comparatively to something on the outside. That's what we do.
Interesting. Well, how does a woman handle? Do women tend to be? Obviously tend to be attracted to highly competitive men, but then highly competitive men have, checkered, let's say, histories in their relationships. Women have to know that going into it.
Well, everyone's different, right? And what you're looking for and expecting out of a partner is going to vary. And there's this really great quote by Steve Harvey, and he talks about men, and it's this idea that women are constantly trying to change men and make men have different habits, behaviors, temperaments, whatever. And they're like, why won't he change? And if he does this thing, is he always going to be this way? And he's like, basically, honey, a man's going to change, but he's going to change for one woman. So if he hasn't changed, you're not the woman, and you need to go.
We don't change for all women. We only change for one woman. If he ain't changing, it's because you ain't the woman.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, you can
That's very
find
interesting.
a man that's like really rough around the edges, has a checkered background, has whatever flaws. It's not expecting him to be complete or perfect, because I'm not complete or perfect, but it's like, are we both working to improve ourselves? Are we constantly trying to grow? And then no matter what, do we have each other's backs? And if you have those things, and you have a really solid foundation to build a life upon.
That's a great point.
It's really interesting. I don't know if I agree with that. So Steve Harvey said a man will only change for one woman. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I agree with that.
Well, the great Chaz Palminteri says you get 3 great women in your life. So
Yeah, maybe you can change a little for one, and then you maybe have a next evolution with a different one, and then maybe you change again for. I don't know. I just don't know if it's a hard and fast one rule. I found what you're saying very interesting. If that's not, and also, I've found in my relationships, like, you can't change people. If there's something that you don't like, you can speak on it, and if you're still seeing it, it's probably going to just be that way always. You know what I mean? But at the same time, there's definitely, a partner that you could have that could inspire growth and change. And I do agree that that's the one that you really want to cherish and work for.
And change might be the wrong word, and maybe that's where it's not resonating, because like if I move this water bottle over here, right, like I just kind of like changed the set. Nothing really fundamental happened, right? Nothing worth noting. But if I like transmute something, evolve something, and bring something to a different level, like right, like paint this wall like rainbow all of a sudden, like now I've done something that's like above and beyond. So maybe like transmuting, enlightening, evolving is a better word than changing, because that's just habits, right? So something not really deep and not something that's going to really change the like the relationship in its entirety. Right?
That's a great point. Yeah, that goes back to our first clip. Yeah, I think the word evolve encapsulates the idea more than change. You know, I was with a girl one time, and then you know we'd go out to the bar when we first started dating, and then you know, she wanted to stop going to the bar. She wanted to start like, you know, doing the stuff that she actually really wanted to do the whole time, you know, and like go to the farmers markets in the mornings and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't want to do that shit at all. Like, let's just go to the bar and hang out. Like, this is what we do. And then she's like, no, we're not doing that anymore. I'm like,
how do you feel about the farmers market now?
You're not. Well,
Yeah,
I've evolved. I've evolved.
So now you like the farmers market.
Yeah. So
we've evolved independently.
I've matured over time. What she was doing was deceitful. She was putting up a front saying, all right, well, look, I got to go to the bar if I'm going to hang out with these dudes. And then she bagged her one.
She got you in there.
Yeah, it's like, guess what we're doing now?
Everything's different now.
Yeah. Some people will change, but if you won't change for her, you ain't the one.
Yeah.
She won one. So,
cool.
Yeah. The evolution of these things I find to be very, very interesting. The idea between nature and nurture, like what is inside of us and what is programmed. And this next clip, I think, speaks to that.
Put it in a cage. I give it 2 water bottles.
Pause real quick.
Just water.
Rat in a cage. That's how it starts. Solid.
And the other is water.
Wait, start it again from the top. You want to sing?
That's what I was looking. I was waiting for you to get it started, man.
Please. Be my guest.
Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. We break into song all the time, so you just jump in whenever you want.
Please.
You ready?
Now, real quick on Smashing Pumpkins, my understanding is the band broke up because of that album. Billy Corrigan, the lead singer, didn't like the rest of the band how they played their instruments, so he went in after they recorded and like replayed all the instruments, laid it down himself.
Played it himself?
Yeah.
Controlled,
and then they came back and
right.
were like, what the? I don't know if that's true. It's on the top of my internet. Kill me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I read that. And Smashing Pumpkins went from one of the biggest bands of the 90s to like dead overnight because this guy just like wouldn't let them play. It's like, no, fuck it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do it. It's like, all right,
Oh,
bro,
shit.
relax. Yeah.
This
So
is
anyway.
this is a cool one. Yeah, play this clip.
And you put it in a cage. I give it 2 water bottles. One is just water, and the other is water laced with either heroin or cocaine. If you do that, the rat will almost always prefer the drugged water and almost always kill itself quite quickly. In the 70s, Professor Alexander noticed we're putting the rat in an empty cage. It's got nothing to do except use these drugs. Let's try something a bit different. So Professor Alexander built a cage that he called Rat Park, which is basically heaven for rats. They've got loads of cheese, they've got loads of coloured balls, they've got loads of tunnels. Crucially, they've got loads of friends, and they've got both the water bottles, the normal water and the drugged water. But here's the fascinating thing. In Rat Park, they don't like the drugged water. They almost never use it. None of them ever use it compulsively. None of them ever overdose. You go from almost 100% overdose when they're isolated to 0% overdose when they have happy and connected lives.
Very interesting.
Like I align with this a lot because I believe that depression and drug addiction or just addictions, I think both stem and are exacerbated by a lack of connectivity, by a lack of community, by a lack of camaraderie. You know what I mean? And the biggest word I would use is connectivity, right? Like I think people who lack that connectivity when they try and fill that hole with drugs and try and change the way they feel, ways they can get that's an even better, purer like feeling from people. I know like take like soldiers who are used to camaraderie on the battlefield, and sure they the crazy traumatic stuff they must go through, the PTSDs and all that stuff. But then you combine that with now I don't have my brothers, the blood of the covenant brothers with me too. I'm back on my own doing this thing. You know what I mean? It leads to depression and suicide. I know with, you know, like having a good community around you. I heard this recently too. For a while, they thought having like 2 or 3 drinks a night was healthier for you. But it turned out that going to the places where you're going to be around people and interacting with people, where you have those 2 to 3 drinks a night.
It was the socialization.
The socialization is what keeps you, what has you living longer and being more healthy. Right? It wasn't the alcohol wasn't really the benefit, but if you're sitting at home just eating your dinner, go to sleep by yourself, you know what I mean? You don't have that socialization and that stuff. So, you know, I just think connectivity is huge for people with you know, and the sense of community is. I just think that's a huge thing for people that you know, we're getting more isolated in ways. We are social media. You know what I mean? We're on our fucking phones. We're not really socializing and being social like around each other together in person. You know?
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Candace?
I think Johann's work is amazing. So that's talking about Chasing the Scream, which is his first book, and then he followed it with Lost Connections, which kind of piggybacks off of that concept. And what he says in his work and findings is like the earliest predictor of, or the most accurate predictor of early onset death is loneliness. And it's just heartbreaking. So we're going off of, you know, really flawed data for a long time, saying like all these drugs are wildly addictive, full stop, that's it. And it's like, well, there's so much more context that we're missing. So if you don't have enrichment, if you don't have community, if you don't have tribe, if you don't have purpose, then you're going
stimulation.
Right, you're going to seek it somewhere else. And then when you look at all of these blue zones, that's another thing, right? Is they try to push this plant-based diet on you, which is like so false. A lot of it.
Blue zone meaning?
Blue zone. So they look at certain spots of like Greece, Spain, and some of the islands in Japan, which is like, I know, totally on the other side, but they kind of lump it all in. And these people have like the most centurions of anyone, so the most people living past 100.
They live the longest in the blue zones.
But what they do find is there's a lot of meat, so it's not that. It comes down to purpose. And then when you have, like specifically on some of the Japanese islands, you have izakaya, which is like purpose. So you have these people that are 100 plus, but they are actively participating in the communities. They're going for walks, they're grocery shopping, they're watching the children. They have like their little social clubs that they go to. So they're not shunned in these very, very sterile elderly homes and like, we have to sanitize aging and death, get it out of here. I don't want to see it because I don't want to be reminded of my own mortality. It's welcomed. It's beautiful. Participate. We want you here for a very long time. You are still useful. So it stems out into a much bigger flaw, I think, that modernity has presented a lot of our people.
That was a big one, was that I heard in the blue zones recently, was that the caring for the elders, like that gives purpose to the young ones and gives like pride and empowerment to the older people. Like you said, instead of shunning them to nursing homes, there you go be over there. And you know, I know plenty of older people in my family who are like, I hope I don't live another blah 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 years. You know what I mean? Because it's not as you know, as fulfilling of a life. Also in those blue zones, I hear a lot of them are hilly places, and people walking a lot, walking through the hills keeps them healthy, and you know, activity. Yeah.
After the lockdowns and those years of the lockdowns, it's impossible for me to look at this and hear what you guys are talking about and not be remarkably biased towards my own anecdotal evidence. You know, like my own eyes telling me a 60-year-old in New Jersey who sits on a train all day and goes to work looks like they're 85 years old, and there are 70-year-olds playing pickleball that move around like they're in their early 50s out here. They're in the sun every day. They never stop moving. They're always active, and they look 20 years and act and move 20 years younger. Whereas where we grew up, the people age faster. The stress of life, the sedentary lifestyle of it, it's so stark to me. And then, you know, somebody had told me the early pandemic was very, very difficult for me, man. I was going out of my mind. I never realized how much of a social creature I was, how much of the bar I liked was just bullshitting with people, you know, how much of sports I liked was the dugout and
the camaraderie, the brotherhood.
Yeah, the tribal aspect of it. I always kind of, you know, thought of myself as, you know, not being that guy. Like we talked about CrossFit. I always used to make fun of the CrossFit people like everybody else, like, oh, I'm going to pay $250. No, because it's hard when you're 40 to find a group of people who want to work out. Yeah, it's hard. It's very difficult. Yeah. And then, you know, speaking with someone, and they were a graduate student, She I believe it was psychology. It was either psychology or psychiatry. I forget which one. And she was referring a study to me about prisoners that were tortured by being left in solitary confinement for long periods of time. And they will, almost all of them, to a T, start mutilating themselves and hurting themselves because they're so bored. It's like that song, it's better to feel pain than nothing at all. They're so bored that they'd rather hurt themselves and feel some sort of stimulation. You know, and that's not a drug, that's not anything else. It's just, man, I'm literally dying of fucking boredom here. And if you look at the suicide rates, we have the highest suicide rate in recorded history, the last year of the lockdowns. You know, we turned every home into a prison, and the suicide rate reflected it. I think that there's 100%, 100%. And then, you know, to give a plug to Slick and Thick, the great episode that we did with your sister, really shows that community, purpose, stimulation, all those three things, we need them. And if we don't need them, then that kind of boredom manifests itself into self-destructive behavior. I'd rather feel pain than nothing at all.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, at least Coke is fucking fun, man. This is a roller coaster. I'm gonna want to kill myself in the morning, and I'm gonna shit 15 times tonight. But this next 17 minutes is gonna be dope. This is gonna play that music louder. Yeah. I think it's. I'm interested to know if going forward technology is able to offset that. Like, you know, we talked about the phone, and I know you and I disagree on this, but with something like Neuralink or something like that, are they going to be able to shut these impulses off in you? Like, let's say I'm not, for once, the pessimist and the worst case scenario person. What if Neuralink actually can shut off these negative impulses? Is that a good thing?
Negative impulses. Which negative impulses?
The impulses for self-destructing. The I'm bored, so let me, you know, take a pill or shoot something, or I don't have a community, so let me find the community, and it's a drug community.
I wouldn't say it's a negative impulse. I'd say that's psychosis. So if you look at what's his name? Peter starts with the D, but he does all of the work with the whales. Like, he's trying to get whales out of captivity. If you look at their behavior out in the wild, again, where it's stimulated, where they have pods, where it's like very natural for them, and then you put them in these tanks, all of a sudden they start developing psychosis. So it's not that they get like they're just like these violent killing machines. There are zero reports of an orca ever going after a person in the wild, zero. And it started happening like clockwork at these aquariums, because they literally would go mad. So like, you take something, you take it out of like a very natural situation, put it in something extremely isolating and unnatural, and you break. So I wouldn't say it's like you're like basically saying, can you prevent psychosis? And then what do you have? You would have like just like this numb drone, because then
we're going back to lobotomies.
Kind of,
Rose
right?
Kennedy.
So it's like, what's worse? Like, you just want to like numb yourself throughout life and get rid of, I don't know, like psychosis obviously isn't good, but it's a maladaptive trait because you're not where you're supposed to be.
Maybe it'll be like an AI girlfriend or something like that.
Well, that's what Mark Andreessen is saying. So he's saying that like these chat bots and like the evolution of like ChatGPT and AI is going to be companionship and eventually like romantic relation. Like, that's where he thinks it's going to go.
Blade Runner, huh?
Like her.
Wow. Interesting. Mm-hmm. I guess that brings us to our fourth clip, Destiny, and who is it now? You want to introduce it?
Melina, his wife.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in Sweden, in Scandinavia, we're extremely just open. In general, we're not super religious either. We're very relaxed. We don't feel bad about ourselves. It's just like a different sort of thing, and I would say we're more progressive when it comes to feminism and stuff. It's more common that you will meet women with a higher body count than when I meet American girls. All of them have like vaginismus, super suppressed sexually, and
what word did you just use?
they can't relax during sex, so it just hurts for them. So they get really nervous. I meet so many girls that are having a lot of issues with sex, and they have very low body count because they just can't relax. And usually they come from a very religious background, so they have just been told, you cannot wear that, you cannot be like that. Where I grew up, it was not like that at all. We just see it as more like a casual thing.
Have you ever been with a lady with vaginismus?
I'm from Jersey. I don't think she met any of the women she's talking about from Jersey. That one I can promise you. So she might have been in like Amish country, Pennsylvania or something. I don't know. It's hard for me to think that she doesn't have an agenda to come out and say what she said. Like, oh, everybody I talk to says.
What do you think her agenda is?
I think she wants to be a progressive feminist promoting, that worldview, right? Like, I mean, the idea
Well, it's
of
not like she's getting a kickback. If like she says that and someone signs up for an OnlyFans account, she's not like winning.
Is she having OnlyFans?
I believe she does.
Okay, so I mean,
I feel like she's a little bit talking about the religion and the shame that's brought to from that, from being like sexual and stuff, and I think that maybe the lack of shame for that could all lead to
Your body's literally locking up. You know what I mean? Because you have this.
Probably because she's being told or they're being told this is wrong. This, you know what I mean? Like you don't do this, or this is for marriage. Just kind of setting rules.
Yeah, and even then, I think women really struggle with the idea that pleasure is okay even within a marriage, because for a long time that you would have a sheet over you, right? Like it was not supposed to be sexual. It was for procreation. Like sex was not to be enjoyed for women. It was to make a baby. So even the idea that sex within marriage is associated with pleasure is relatively new.
That's in like the Jewish religion? With the
a lot
sheet?
of religions.
I was Amish, I thought.
A lot of religions. Yeah. A lot of like white religions, Christianity, whatever, like way back in the day.
Eurocentric, would that be?
Eurocentric?
Eurocentric.
Yeah. But they've done studies specifically when it comes to like porn addiction, sex addiction. They don't exist. The only people that say that it exists is usually funded by like a very conservative fundamentalist group, but no neuroscientist is going to say that it's an addiction. It doesn't meet the criteria for the DSM-5, so like no one can argue that.
What's the DSM-5?
It's a diagnostic manual for anything, like any psychiatric mental illness disorder. So you have to basically go through a certain checklist, and you have to meet an exact amount in order to get a diagnosis. So if you don't tick like the exact number of boxes, if you're one short, you do not have it. So sex addiction, porn addiction doesn't qualify for that. And when she looked at the people that were self-diagnosing and saying, I have an addiction, I have a problem, she would compare it to these other men, and these other men were like, no, I watch a healthy amount of porn, I have a healthy amount of sex. The only differentiating factor was that the men that were saying that they had an addiction came from a very conservative religious background. So it was this inherent
kind
shame.
Of that puritanical.
Exactly. So it wasn't more than the average. It was just like, to them, there was so much shame that they're like, this is wrong. And they had a bodily reaction to it.
What was it, DSM-5 or something? I got to
DSM-5.
look into that, because I feel like someone could get addicted to anything. I think you could be maybe not physically addicted, but mentally addicted. I think everybody's brain is different, and people could be more disposed to, habit forming.
Pleasure junkie, adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, there's
Yeah. I tend to agree with you that anything that is good that you like,
sure,
you're gonna want to do more of it inherently,
exactly.
right? And then there can be thresholds where, maybe again we're coming back to semantics. Is it like a lack of discipline instead of an addiction?
I think it's important, right? Like it's important to differentiate those terms and to say like what's addiction and what is just like a maladaptive habit. So what Dr. Deb Rousseau is saying, like,
why is it got to be maladaptive though?
Oh my God.
The misandry in here is getting.
Anyways, Dr. Deb Rousseau says it's more of a procrastination issue or a compulsion issue or a delayed gratification issue. It's not you are addicted to porn, you are addicted to sex. It's that you are a lazy piece of shit.
So does the DSM-5 think gambling is an addiction?
No.
Okay. So I think I can 100% tell you. I know people that are definitely
it sounds like they're
addicted.
just saying if it's like a chemical or like a physical addiction.
Sure. And I don't know if the gambling is the actual addiction to catch myself. I think
the rush, the juice.
Rush. I almost think the loss. They're almost like sadists. I know guys who always chase the loss. It's like the loss, the pain of the loss gives them more juice than the win. And you look at a guy like Michael Jordan talks about losing millions of dollars, and they're like, "Do you consider yourself a gambling addict?" He's like, "No, because I've got billions of dollars. It doesn't affect me." So the fact it doesn't affect you, if you do heroin every day, are you addicted to it? The weed people, before weed was basically legal everywhere, my buddies would be like, I'm not addicted to weed, and I'm like, bro, you smoke it 3 times a day every day, and you get really cranky if you don't. You're like, well, I just like it. Okay, but you like it like habitually. You like it a lot. So I don't know if you're addicted or not, but you really, really like this thing, almost to a self-destructive manner, right? So there's people I know that are self-destructive in their sexual habits. They've ruined their lives.
Yeah.
I know that they're, so addiction, I don't know if that's, again, it's very interesting. This is the semantics episode. I think
got a semantics-ode?
A semantics-ode. Is addiction, does the addiction have to be self-destructive for it to matter?
Well, I think it does need to be self-destructive, yes. And then I would also say that when you talk about an addiction, it says something about the tool or the drug or the stimulant, right? So if I were to say that ice cream is addictive, and I guess we could argue that sugar is, right? But there are plenty of people that can go and have one ice cream and it's not a problem. And then there's other people that are like, I need 4 bins, and it is very much a problem. So if you go out and you say ice cream is addictive, then you are making a very bold statement about ice cream rather than like an individual that has a relationship, a maladaptive relationship with ice cream. So when you say porn is addictive, you are saying something about porn and not about like that specific consumer of it that has an issue. So if it wasn't porn, he would probably have an issue with a cheeseburger, or he'd probably have issues with cocaine or whatever it is, just like the mice. So when you say porn is addictive, that's not honest. You have an addictive behavior,
Ethan
pattern,
Suplee.
wiring, whatever.
Yeah.
But the verbiage, I think, matters here.
Yeah, our friend Ethan Suplee has a great podcast, American Glutton, and he amplifies what you're saying. He says, like, that may not be addictive, but I am an addict.
There you go.
So it's that's I like this. I'm gonna have 6 of them. Where you might be able to have 1. I'm gonna keep going.
And then you take an alcoholic. Us 3 might be able to have 1 drink. An alcoholic has 1 drink, then they're off the. You know what I mean?
I had to moderate what I can and can't drink.
Yeah.
I had to moderate my activities.
And that's something also with people with eating disorders, because you don't have to drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can just stop drinking. But if you have like an issue with food, you have to eat to stay alive, right?
Yeah.
So that's why that can be a really touchy, difficult thing, very hard for people.
I think I get what she's saying, and I understand it, and I can appreciate the message she's trying to get across. I think, personally, she's fighting a 50-year-old battle. I don't think the cultural, repressive, religious overtones really exist in American culture in 2023. I don't think that I
can tell you they absolutely do.
To the extent that they did 50 years ago?
In a different way, I would say, yeah. I mean, I've lost jobs. My husband's lost funding. We've been exiled out of so many communities, work situations. I've had a Navy SEAL storm out of a dinner. Like, absolutely, that still exists.
I think the progressive left points at the religious right.
Navy SEAL stormed out of dinner. He wasn't afraid to go to war, but he was afraid to have dinner with you.
I'm that terrifying. I'm that unacceptable.
Man.
Yeah. You shiksa. I don't know. I feel like it's like we talked about in another episode. It's like it's easy to point at Marilyn Manson and say that's the bad guy. It's easy to point at the porn star and say that's the bad guy. I think for the left, it's easy to point at the religious and be like that's the bad guy. To me, it's a boogeyman thing.
But the boogeyman isn't trying to pass legislation. The boogeyman's not trying to shut down private companies and corporations. The boogeyman's not trying to take away credit card processors from working with you or your ability to bank. And then under Obama, he passed this law. It was Operation Chokehold, which made it so fucking difficult for people who are operating legal businesses to bank. So if you are selling CBD, if you are selling marijuana, if you are in the adult industry, all 3 things are not federally, but all 3 things are legal. The weed is the only one that's not federally legal, but yes, porn is federally legal and so is CBD. If you report that to a bank, they have the right to shut down your bank account for you not to be able to take credit card processors for a legal business. So what the fuck is that? You're gonna tell me like that's just a boogeyman? That's not a boogeyman. That's an actual reality for a lot of people.
Yeah, but that's very different from what she's saying. I agree with everything you're saying. You're weaponizing the government for your personal morality. She's saying that women don't like sex because of church people.
It's not that they don't like sex. It's that they don't feel worthy of it. They don't feel that pleasure is their birthright. They don't think that its purity is something that they're clinging on to because it's something you give away, right? I'm giving away my virginity. I'm giving away my purity. It's like, what did you lose besides your hymen? This is a joke, right? Like, I'm not any less worthy because I slept with one man, right? I didn't give anything away. And, the trad women are going to argue this, but...
The what?
The trad women, like the really traditional women who expect you to be a virgin until marriage. Like, that okay, you do that. That's not for me. But to say that you've lost any amount of humanity because you slept with someone, I think is insane. But it is drilled into you, right? Like we talked about body count the other day and how like apparently so many men care about that. I can tell you, I know a lot of men that don't give a shit. And a lot of like high value men. I can show you my DMs. They don't care. And my stuff's on Google. So it's not like they're like, I wonder if she's just really, she's slept with 3 guys. Like, obviously not.
Well, I don't think body count would ever make a high value man not want to sleep with somebody.
I'm not even saying sleep. I mean, wife the fuck up.
Really?
I have had
in the DMs. You're getting that?
Yeah, because I've gone on like dates and stuff like that with other famous men, celebrities, like high end, like very well known comedians, whatever. I've done all of that. Like wife me up, not like sleep with me. I mean, take me to like crazy dates, buy me like insane things, want to be like official, get me out of the industry. Like that is one thing.
There's only like 11 comedians that can afford this. So internet, let's get it going here.
Anyways, but yeah, that like literally that want to wife you up, not just date. So yeah, I know there's a difference, but I'm telling you, I've had guys that wanted a relationship.
Do you think have you run into these women? I'm finding it hard to like. I've
so
traveled the country. These women don't exist. I feel
further proof.
What women?
These sexually repressed religious.
So when you have a baby, obviously your pelvic floor goes to shit. Right, and that's going to affect your core. That's going to
do them Kegels.
It's more no.
Your
Ladies,
hips
if you're listening, stop doing the Kegels.
No?
Stop doing the
Kegels.
I've been doing Kegels this whole time.
For most women, I think it might be different for men. Men can do Kegels. It's really important for you guys too.
Yeah, no.
It really is.
Wait.
Core.
So
let me finish my thought. We will get into men and Kegels.
Hold on, wait. I just need to get this out.
Would you like me to teach you really quick?
No, I want to be very clear here. You're saying women
Hold on,
shouldn't
now I'm getting hot. I gotta take this off.
You're saying
worked up.
Women shouldn't do Kegels, but men should.
Most women should not be doing Kegels. Most women actually have too much hypertension within their pelvic floor. So when you have a baby, you go to a pelvic floor therapist before and after because they assess like your health, your protocol, what you need. Most women, and this is just for the clinic that I went to, but they service like 2 hours away. Like they're a huge company. So most women that go into this facility have so much tension that they end up tearing during childbirth because they can't relax and they can't properly push. And when they come back, it's like basically.
Is that considered vaginismus?
Yes, the muscle can't relax, so it's always tight, and it ends up weakening the muscle. So if you are sitting there Kegel, you're actually just like weakening the muscle. So most women need to learn how to relax. So you picture a flower, like a flower bud opening and then closing and opening and closing. And for me, that's the most.
I'm the one getting hot. I got to take my So I just keep going back to the fact that you said women shouldn't do Kegels, but men should.
Because most men don't know that you could even do a Kegel. Most men don't know they have a pelvic floor, and they wonder why they have low back pain because you're not engaging when you're lifting, moving, squatting, whatever it is. So like take a deep breath in and just like picture your bottom just kind of like just opening like a flower, Gerard, just like a beautiful flower.
Yeah, Gerard.
And then close that flower bud really tight and lift. Pretend you're trying to pick something up.
I'm at full prolapse. Full prolapse right now. I have not done a Kegel in my life. I'm afraid if I open the flower won't close. That's interesting. I've literally never heard that once that women are doing too many Kegels.
It's not, yeah. So most women have like too much tension up there already, and then all of the stuff that you're being fed is Kegel, and you're making the thing worse. And the whole fucked up thing is they're doing this because they want to be so tight for their man. The problem is when you're super tight, the guy can't actually get all the way in, and then you wonder why a woman's not receiving like a G-spot orgasm or like fully experiencing like the most pleasure in sex. It's because she's not relaxed, so he can't get where he needs to go. So it's actually counterproductive. So like being crazy tight all the time and clenching down during sex is bad for both of you. The more you know.
Yeah. Well, I always get where I need to go. I don't know about you, Mick. Speaking of, there's no segue. There's just no segue. Let's take this great episode of Canceled Weekly out with a funny clip that never is not funny.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful.
You're a big guy.
For you.
A cat video, really?
I love it.
A cat video?
I love it. Play it again. Play it again. Look at that cat's eyes. Give this cat the Oscar.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
I got you.
If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful
You're a big guy.
for you.
Cats are a bug out to me, man. If you try to make eye contact with a dog, the dog just like looks at everything other than your eyes. It gets so like anxious about it. The cat will just stare you down, like do something. Just take this take this off. Take this off my head right now. Take it off. I can hear that cat's voice.
Yeah.
That cat. One more time. One more time.
Oh my
one more
gosh.
time. One more time. Look at this.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful
You're a big guy.
for you.
Now I see why you didn't want us to see that video before. Because I would have nixed it so fast. I'd be like,
Oh, yes. That was Bane Cat. And we are Canceled Weekly. For Mick, Candace, I'm Gerard. And we will see you next week.